Hello and welcome to SimCast, the higher education simulation podcast. My name is Tony Jeremy and I'm joined by my regular co-host and partner in simulation crime, Dr. Lawrence Hill.
Hello everybody and welcome back to SimCast. I am indeed Dr. Lawrence Hill. It's very good to have you back with us. And today we are delighted to be joined by Nick Turton. Thank you for joining us today, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Nick actually is the Simulation Centre Manager, which is an exotic beast, isn't it? We've not had a Simulation Centre Manager on the podcast before.
And so we've wined and dined Nick. He's come all the way from Nottingham, which is a long way to Norwich.
Yeah.
We've had a bit of lunch and we've had a chat about what your role entails and the things that you get up to. And we're really looking forward to exploring that a little bit more on this episode of the podcast.
Yeah, so Simulation Centre Manager in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences at the University of Nottingham. Nick takes care of a faculty-wide clinical skills and simulation service across those schools, including approximately 100-person simulated patient program.
Really looking forward to diving into that.
Yeah, absolutely. He leads a team of generalist and specialist simulation technicians, and is going to talk to us about quite a well-evolved simulation ecosystem at the University of Nottingham. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice for you to say that it's a highly evolved operation as well.
I think one of the reasons we say that is because we are sorely missing a simulation centre manager. So perhaps we'll get into the weeds of the differences between the two. And what might seem as everyday commonplace for you is quite different for us.
Yeah, and it would be great to hear from anyone listening as well. If we're comparing how simulation centres and systems are organised within your organisations, perhaps compared to how things stack up at the University of Nottingham, would be really interesting. And I'm sure everyone, including us, is going to learn loads from what Nick's got to say.
If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like. Equally so, if you didn't like the episode, give us a dislike, but let us know in the comments why, because we're always keen to improve. To keep up to date with all things Sim, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to check the notification bell. And SimCast is available on all popular streaming platforms.
So Nick, let's dive in. It's kind of a double question I'm going to ask you to start off. First of all, I mentioned that Tony mentioned we don't have a simulation centre manager, so it's a kind of an exotic beast in our eyes. But what is a simulation centre manager, and why do you do what you do?
Okay, so I think my role is predominantly managing the technical team. So, and I should say, really, we do have some administrative staff. So we mentioned that simulated patient program earlier. So admin staff, organising all of that, doing the logistics around that, and then the technical team supporting simulation across the faculty and the department. So my role is really trying to get that team to be as efficient and as successful as it can possibly be. I think you guys have talked a lot about doing simulation in the right way, and there is an element of technical support or simulation technical support that needs to be done in the right way as well.
Absolutely.
And so it is all about trying to get that team to buy into that. You can't tell people what to do for every single task, can you? So you've almost got to get these ideas across to people so when they make those judgments, do I do this or do I do that? They make the right call because they've learned those kind of ideals. So a lot of it is around that, and then obviously training and keeping the space running. There's a lot of strategy involved as well. So working alongside simulation leads within the different schools, understanding what's coming up in 6 months' time or a year's time, what's the direction of the department and simulation across the faculty, and getting to a point that actually, so when those things hit my team, they're already in a position to be able to deal with it. So a lot of forward planning and thinking ahead.
The glue that keeps everything together.
Yeah.
So you've got one eye on the horizon and one eye on what's immediately in front of you at all times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why do you do what you do? That's more of a personal question, I guess.
Yeah, so I knew you were going to ask me this, so I've been trying to think about what it is without sounding too arrogant. But I genuinely believe I think I'm good at doing what I do.
Sure.
And there's a real kind of buzz to know that you are successful in your role. I think it's built on the back of being a teaching technician in, as I've kind of gone through my own career. So understanding kind of those roles of a technician and what you have to do, building on that experience and then managing people, and just, became quite, capable of doing it. And I think, so I'll give you an example of something that was really satisfying. And I think you've talked about, that magic of simulation. But we had a plan for a new building within the University of Nottingham, and we wanted to get buy-in from the university executive team. So it's a big faculty event to invite these guys down. And we got, so our lead for simulation was running this simulation with some of our students to show the executive team what it is that we do.
Yep. Because simulation is not well understood at senior levels of organisations, is it?
Absolutely not. Yeah. So those group of students were part of our Medicine Skills Society or Simulation Society. So I'd worked with them to try and get them to come in and use our space on their own, and doing what they do. In that kind of simulation, I got my specialist simulation technician that I'd managed to secure funding for and progress all the bits of equipment that were in there. I'd had a handle on securing money. I sat at the back of the room and didn't do anything, but this magic of simulation unfolded and, schmoozed the executive team. So I didn't do anything on that day, but all of those things that I'd done in the past helped to get that green tick on that proposal that we've got.
I've definitely been in situations before where I've had to try and explain what simulation is to sort of key stakeholders or people at a higher level, and the amount of times you get that kind of waxy look back, they just don't get it. So if you can make it happen.
Can I say, I also just love that idea that the epitome of success for you on that day was the fact that everything ran like clockwork,
just sat
as
back.
as if by magic. But that's like almost I want to say like a sort of a fine restaurant manager. Like they
it's the fruit of your labours, isn't it?
The fruits of your labours. You don't need to be serving the tables or cooking the food or doing the decor. Actually, you can just sit back and watch all your guests come in and have an amazing time. And actually, all the hard work is done. So you're a grafter. You're a guy that makes things happen in the back of house all the while.
So I would say as well, I don't actually know how to do a lot of the things like this. My sim tech, I don't know how she does it, but she does do it. She does an amazing job. But I don't need to, do I? That's the value of having a team of people that are able to do all of these.
And also tasks. The importance of leadership and delegation, right? Yeah. Interesting. You talked about the different levels of technical support and also technical roles. And I think that's really important because in a lot of institutions, there is not a lot of succession planning for technical staff. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about that. So what does your team comprise of? Okay. And you said that you previously were in a technician role.
Yeah. So I guess, one thing that is really evident is that that's just not it's not unique to simulation. That's across the board in HE. Even if you go, ASPE is a great place to meet sim techs from the NHS. And I think it's even worse in the NHS about progression for those guys. And there's a big movement within the UK called the Technician Commitment, focuses on, institutions signing up to pledge, we are going to develop our technical staff. And there's a huge amount of work that's gone into that already, but there's so much more to do to create these roles and to create these progression pathways. So for my team, we have our simulation technicians that do a lot of the setup. So it is about, there's a lot of hard work. It's moving equipment around and getting the rooms right. Yeah. Understanding all the little bits of, those little elements that really...
It's all the behind-the-scenes stuff, right?
Yeah.
How the equipment works, how you set it up right, how you fix it.
So as an academic, you turn up and it's just there.
Yeah. And and a lot of kind of building management as well, just making sure the heating's on. And about your buildings, but not all the heating isn't always on in them. The lights don't always come on, keeping those spaces actually functional, keeping them safe. There's a lot of health and safety, compliance checks in all of those roles. So really critical grafting roles, that give you a good foundation in starting to learn how to be a simulation technician. You've then got, after that, you can start to have a bit more of a specialism. So you might want to be more of a technical specialist.
Okay.
Where you're looking at, the nuts and bolts of mannequins and programming them. I think you can also start to get involved in simulation. You might be we've got some technical team members that facilitate debrief as well.
Are they, generally speaking, more senior members of the technical team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've got a good element of experience of kind of that style of teaching.
Yeah.
We've done training with them as well, supported them on how you be a facilitator. And then, like I say, looking after a lot of the equipment. And I think certainly in recent years, there's an explosion almost of possibilities within simulation, whether it's VR, all sorts of, the mannequins, loads of really technical bits that.
Do you do much VR work in your university?
So we've got a specialist technician that supports with the VR headsets.
Okay.
So even setting those up is really time consuming.
We've got a load of VR headsets that sort of sit in a box because there's no one who's got the dedicated time to put into it.
So we have that. So we can do, and I think you guys will know better than me, but actually teaching with VR is really challenging. If you had a group of 30 people with headsets, it's next to impossible to actually achieve that because, people will have kind of issues actually getting the system running. What are they looking at? You don't know because you can't see because they've got the headsets on. So we can do small scale VR teaching. At Nottingham, our engineering department has actually built a VR lab as well. So it's got, I think it's about 40 headsets.
Okay.
They're tethered to like gaming PCs. There's a specialist technician that supports those sessions. And they've got software that launches all the headsets in one go. You can kind of walk around with an iPad and see what each individual's looking at as well. So some really kind of clever
what I'm hearing from you time and time again is specialist technicians.
Yeah.
So all of these advances in pedagogy and technology fusing together need a specialist who kind of their role is to look after those kind of things.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
it's academics that deal with it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And then you're not teaching because you're dealing with the stuff that a technician should be dealing with.
Okay.
So you manage this quite sophisticated team of technicians who are both kind of have generalist aspects and some that have other specialists.
How many people have you got in the team?
Yeah.
In total, including me, there's 10 of us.
Okay.
But bear in mind, there's those two admin team members as well.
Administrative team members as well. Yeah. And you mentioned, and one thing we wanted to get into, you mentioned before we started that they have a hand to play in your simulated patient network. Can you tell us a bit about your simulated patient network, please?
Yeah. So again, it's coming into the role. It's something I inherited. So it was existing before I arrived. Essentially, we have people that volunteer within the university or volunteer their time to the university. Quite often it's people that have got an interest in healthcare. It might be previous academics. We've got a lot of kind of retirees that are just available at the time. And that does cause us some issues around diversity. It's hard to run a pregnant simulation for the midwives with someone who's retired. So we've done a lot of work around kind of trying to diversify that.
Yeah.
But essentially about 100 volunteers that we can draw on for any simulation. So an academic would just email us and say.
And are they only used for simulation? Because we have service users that are used across a range of different areas of specialism within our education provision, from everything from kind of giving lived examples in seminars to interviewing students as part of recruitment. Are these just simulated patients, or are they used elsewhere?
No, they are. So exactly as you've described, it might be people with lived experience.
Okay.
It might, they are involved in kind of interviews for prospective students as well.
Great. So you're really fully utilising a skill set that they've got. Interesting. We do we have service users, but in terms of a lot of the simulation we do, and we spoke about this before the episode, quite often we'll get faculty members playing patients or maybe other students, and straight away that level of kind of a fidelity and immersion is reduced, because you might have the best acting skills in the world, but if you're not a 70-year-old patient,
it's So I think what's really key with it is, again, making sure that is the right person for the right simulation. And I think we've found that to our detriment in the past, so we've used people in exam, so OSCEs as well. And it's a different type of simulated participant that you need in an exam. You need
you need that consistency.
And some people love to ad lib, which really
we've talked before about Confederates and other people going rogue in simulation. You definitely don't want that in an OSCE.
No.
So how does it work then? So I'm an academic. I want to run a simulation session. I recognise that I want to have some simulated patients. I then put a request into your team and then leave it with you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Fantastic.
So we collect a lot of data on the patients. We do our recruitment plan kind of identifies this, that if you want to, you can let us know if you've got any past medical history. That's not compulsory. You can just play play a role or be somebody that's examined. But there's quite a lot around kind of that almost induction to make sure people feel comfortable in what, because they might sign up and then actually go, this is not for me at all. I didn't know what this was at all. So we do a lot around that to make sure that people are feeling comfortable and fully appreciate what we do. We do a lot we actually get our kind of more long-term sim patients to work with them and to really give them so
there's like a coaching
so
there's a coaching network. That's fascinating. And what proportion of the simulation that takes place in your centre involves simulated patients, would you say?
That's a really good question. I don't know the exact figures, but it's high. It's
a lot.
There are people
like half of the sessions,
maybe more than that.
Really? So that's quite a lot.
Yeah, traditionally you'd use a simulated patient mannequin like a sim man, wouldn't you? But I personally just think you get much more authentic experience if you put a person in front of a student, provided you don't need to put invasive lines or jump on their chest. But
there's so much that you can do. You can have the patient there and you can have an arm next to them, can't you? You can do the actual technique on a bit of plastic.
But trying to get consent out of a plastic arm is a different
it doesn't it's not great rehearsal for the learner, is it? Because it's only ever playing a game, whereas with a real person, immediately it's more authentic because they're a human being.
I mean, in some ways I liken it. So we don't use our sim patients in our moving and handling training, but we do get the students to actually put each other in a hoist to experience,
have a lived experience
of how vulnerable you feel by somebody in control of you like that. So, and I think that sim patient experience in simulation really brings that as well.
Fascinating.
So we don't need to get into the details, but I'm assuming there's a budget for simulated patients.
Yes.
In fact, when we were talking before we started recording, it struck us that there's quite a sort of a well-developed kind of financial structures. I mean, we don't want to get into details, but hypothetically, how, if you were to start from scratch, would you set up the finances of a simulation centre?
So I think starting from scratch is the hardest to do, because you have no idea how much stuff you can obviously model, but it would take a huge amount of work. I certainly didn't walk into this role having to actually kind of put a finger in the air and say how much budget you need, because I think that is really hard to do. So when I came in, I think what was important was to understand, what are we spending and how much do we need to spend, and it takes. So you just have to go through a year, and see what the budget is. It's interesting. I don't know whether it's the same with you, but we have a project code for spending things, so that assigns the money to a certain area. I'm just going to grab a drink.
Yeah, of course.
That's fine.
Yeah. Maybe starting from scratch isn't really the question to ask. So, hypothetically, what does that financial management look like then? Because I think that's what you're about to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go on.
What project codes are we actually spending on is a really good starting point, and seeing kind of what is the budget on all of those. Are you actually spending all of it throughout the year? I think a really good element to do is good financial practices. So the finance managers will love a nice kind of steady line of, let's say it's a 60k budget, 5k every month. That is their ideal, isn't it? Because they know we're doing, it makes a nice graph. It's great to present.
Yeah.
Teaching isn't like that, is it?
No,
we don't really.
Peaks and troughs.
Yeah. So it is lumpy, but you don't want to get to, let's say, July is your end of financial year. You don't want to get to June and still have 50k to spend.
But again, the real world's messy. And how many times does that happen? How many times do you work with an NHS organisation that has got money to spend before the end of the financial year and just needs it gone? And then what happens is you have a knee-jerk reaction and just throw it into something that never gets used.
For me, that's a failure of the whole kind of financial system, not system, but your kind of management of it. So for me, it's important to be checking every month. Are we on track actually for what we should be spending? And when we started in August, we didn't really spend anything, but now we're catching up and getting to the right point.
Is your budget for simulation, is it ring fenced, or are you having to find pockets of money to then contribute towards it?
So it is ring fenced, but there are elements of it that come from different places around the faculty. And a lot of that, so a lot of my role is around working with kind of the different people and making those connections, really knowing who are the right people to go to. So within our school structures, we have head of operations, so work really closely with those guys to just to put forward the case of actually saying, for simulation, it'd be really nice to have some more money, or we need some more resource to help with this.
I think for Lawrence and I, working in an institution where we don't have that strategic managerial role, we have school managers, but they certainly are not aligned to simulation, and they're not dedicated. They're not dedicated, but
simulation.
They've spoken to us quite openly and said, "This is not my area of expertise. Therefore, I'd be doing it a disservice." But what is glaringly apparent is we don't have that person who knows where those budgets are and how to access them.
And I dare say that'll be true for other people listening. You know, and so what wouldn't happen if you didn't have a simulation center manager? What are the
we know the answer to this already because we've experienced it. But if you weren't in post, what would start to sort of crumble and fall?
So I think, again, like today and tomorrow, if I wasn't there, it wouldn't have a huge amount of difference, but team members eventually will leave. You are going to have to replace those roles. Somebody needs to make a case to get those roles replaced. There is going to be equipment that breaks, and have we really thought about how have we got almost like an asset replacement model within our finance or our budget throughout the year to actually replace something that is going to break at some point? We know it is at some point, so we can't just wait until it happens. We had a great injection of cash a few years ago and we bought tons of stuff. But actually, one of my concerns is that it's all going to break at the same time.
It's all going out of warranty. Then you've got your extended, warranty repair bills and things like that.
Obsolescence is basically on your risk register. Then basically things just going and breaking down, and then they're normally big items, and it's like, how do you fund that? So that's one element. I suppose another way of framing it is, what other value does a simulation center manager add? So you're kind of looking at risk, but what else does it do in your role that benefits the system?
So I think, you talk right there about people that you're asking questions of, aren't you? But they can't give an answer because they don't really understand what it is that you're asking. And so they're reluctant to make a decision on it. Yeah. And I think
they hold the keys and the purse strings, but they're not going to pull the trigger.
Yeah. So I think a real essential part of my role is, one, not only kind of making them be able to understand that, but
negotiation,
also,
right?
But building a reputation as well to actually, so people trust that when you say something, that you'll deliver it, and it's not that you're, trying to pull a fast one or something like that, but you're actually, this is a real need and a real concern, or it's something that we need to be able to be doing, or this is the right way to go for this department, and it's around regular communication with those guys, and it's not every day, obviously, but you need a structure of meetings where you can raise issues and say, look, this is going on, so that in the back of their minds they know, okay,
it's so
we
important,
need to solve this because he talked about it the other 2 months ago or something like that.
It's so important. We're very much in this boom period of simulation, and it's really sort of starting to take a head of speed, and more and more program teams, more and more schools and universities are recognizing that simulation is important. A lot of people still don't understand it, and I think it's still seen as a panacea. It will fix everything. And I think a lot of people don't understand how expensive simulation is as well. So being able to be that link and to be the person that negotiates, and like you say, is respected, that decision isn't just you just trying to pull £500,000 towards a simulation project, because that's essentially what a big project could end up being like.
I think that's really well put. And actually, in the past couple of years, there are so many companies that are approaching us and saying, we have got the greatest thing that's going to solve all your problems. Write the check now, because, and they may be right, but how do we actually operationalize it? How do we use it? We don't want it sat in a corner doing nothing.
So presumably you're the first port of call for those queries and questions that comes in. So that's another role.
So quite often it will find its way through to me. It might not be directly to me, but it will definitely at some point when somebody goes, we need to buy it.
Or I met this amazing rep at a conference and like, Nick, we've really got to buy this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's happening to you, Lawrence, but I was often the first port of call for stuff like that. And being an academic, they go, okay, we've got this new bit of equipment we want to try. And I'm like, okay, great. And I've got no idea about the budget and the financial side of things, because it's just not part of my... So again, if that isn't happened to you, you've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Because you are the sort of the center point of the operations in terms of managing the budgets, in terms of understanding the technical team's capabilities to implement that new tech.
So I think what
sense.
I'm understanding, and to use one of your terms, which I really liked, is without your role, it all becomes a bit lumpy.
Yeah,
doesn't it? Like you could do it. You could kind of fudge your way through simulation without that sim manager role, but the sim manager role helps to really coordinate everything, bring it all together. I guess the link between academic and technical team as well.
Yeah. So I guess it's important that we demonstrate in terms of like leaders of the simulation. So my integration with our simulation leads for the two schools is really close. And that should be replicated throughout, my team and their teams as well. So with my simulation team, my technical team, they work alongside maybe module conveners to design simulation and talk about what they actually want. I'm not saying it always happens, because it doesn't, but we should model how we want everybody else to be working together. So I wouldn't necessarily get involved in kind of the simulation design, but I've got a team that do and really should be involved, certainly when we talk about some of that specialist kit, because it is complicated to use it. It's not going to be ready tomorrow if you want something tomorrow. So you really need to have thought through what you're going to do. And what's really great about the team and sitting in a faculty department is that we see everything. So we see what physio are doing, we see what medicine are doing, we see what nursing are doing. Everyone in those teams just has their own viewpoint.
Yeah, so you've got a global overview of what's happening. Yeah.
So you see best practice, you see really clever ideas, and you go, oh, you know what, actually...
This worked really well on this program.
This would be brilliant for you guys as well. We could try this.
And are the teams receptive to those suggestions as well?
So I think it's probably a bit of a mixed bag. I think it's just around... It's not that they're not receptive, but I think you know better than I.
You just get into the thick of it, don't you? You have to just deliver a program, and sometimes you can't see the wood through the trees.
Yeah, and change takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and a lot of effort and work. So it's trying to manage that, I guess, from their point of view.
Can we talk a little bit about your governance structure? Because we talked about this off camera, but in terms of decision making and governance and stuff, you have quite high level conversations, don't you, with people within the university?
Relatively high, I guess. So we have a skills and simulation board. So that's where I sit. There's my manager, so the faculty operations director. He chairs it. We've got an education lead for the faculty. We've got the simulation lead for 2 schools. We also have heads of operations for the schools that come to that.
So that's kind of like a school manager level.
Yeah. Sometimes heads of school will come to it. Dean of education sometimes come to it as well. And it is really to discuss those the forward planning. So
Okay.
from everyone's point of view, what is coming our way that's going to disrupt?
So it's fair to say at a faculty level, you've got enough clout from the higher level people that they're taking simulation seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is, I think, what led me to sort of describe the system as a highly evolved simulation network or simulation ecosystem, because that takes a lot of organizational buy-in to have a cross-faculty, senior meeting, decision-making board that tackles those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
I wonder what the evolutionary process was to get there. Was it before you started, or have you seen this board emerge?
No, so it was in place before I started. And again, has always had quite a similar representation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think certainly heads of school and heads of operations, they want their best for the students. And this was a forum that they could go to at least make the case for getting this. And certainly when I joined, the brief from Health Sciences Head of Operations was, we need to upgrade the equipment in our department. It isn't at the standard that we think is acceptable for our students. So I have the budget, but I need you to do it for me.
Would you be able to do your job without that board being in place?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So equipment is obviously a really important part of running a simulation center, and you've mentioned some of the team. What is the training? What does the training look like for the simulation educators and the simulation technicians that you have on board?
So it does depend on the level. Obviously, you might be getting people that have come in with simulation experience. I think that's really hard to find, actually. There's not enough simulation technicians. And so generally we do get people coming in without an experience of simulation.
So steep learning curve.
Yeah. And what's great is that, again, there's now an established team that I've built over the 5 years, and a lot of that training is in person with them. And there are roles that we can, that we have SOPs for, and it's fine. That's relatively easy to train people on. But the more specialist stuff takes time. We're certainly not in a perfect place as well. So there is an element of self-teaching. There's an amazing simulation technician community that's run through ASPE. I'm sure you guys mentioned it actually at the HPSN that you became aware of it, and there's a WhatsApp group with hundreds and hundreds of technicians from I think it's across the globe. So if you are struggling, you can kind of feed into that. But typically, it is kind of a lot of kind of shadowing people and just understanding and finding the time to be able to, take a couple of hours and learn a few bits on a simulation mannequin.
But a really important part of this as well, in terms of organizational kind of maturity, is offering those opportunities for development of those people. Like you can train people and you can get them in and they can do a job. One of the things that comes across is, because you've got this system of generalist and specialist technicians, you've got this kind of development pathway. So talk to us a bit about how that works. Like what does that development look like for those individuals?
So I think it's something that's developed over the past 5 years since being enrolled. It certainly wasn't there when I started. And it's been around kind of funding for that role. So we've done, and just generally finding certain things that have actually worked really well for us. So there's the Becoming Simulation Faculty training through the NHS. That's something that we're now kind of not mandating for the team, but really heavily.
It's a good e-learning for health package.
Yes,
it's a nice package. I've reviewed that.
And thinking about going back to that idea earlier on about getting those ideals across to people, it really just gives people a great idea of what simulation is and how it should be run. And I'm not saying every element of it is specific to a technician, but when they're in a room setting up and they need to think, right, how do I organise this room? That training becomes invaluable because it really, they're thinking about, is this beneficial to the students?
Right. And it's nice theory too, isn't it? So it's some theoretical underpinning for, what might superficially look like quite a vocational job. Actually, here's a load of theory to underpin what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess the other side of, kind of building that development structure for a team is, from my point, looking at those opportunities. So when somebody says, and it doesn't happen a lot. Let's be honest. But somebody said, "Here's some money." I think we could do with some support for this area.
Mm.
Okay, well, I've actually got some money or something from, maybe it's like an SPL funding or tariff funding as well. Some of it's come from, and so we've already kind of trained somebody to a point where they've got an opportunity to apply for that role, and they're not necessarily going to get it. It's an open interview, but you've already put your team in a position where they can actually apply for it. And I think it's really important to think about that. You've got to train your team, because they'll leave if they don't, unless it's what they want and they just want to sit in a role.
It can easily be one of those roles that people do for a couple of years, and then obviously they want to move on if there's no career progression. Some places are lucky to have just really, really good techs who are happy with what they're doing. But having a career pathway and progression is certainly something that ASPE want in terms of their accreditation, and I think it's something that organisations need to take a little bit more seriously.
And I certainly want that for myself. I want to progress and move wherever. And I wouldn't stay if a manager was going to block that for me. Yeah. So you've got to put that effort into your team and give them these opportunities to train. And it's not just training; it's about making connections and going to conferences and being part of that simulation community as well.
Yeah, and it works in the favour of the university as well. So if you can get your message out there and show all the great work that you're doing at Nottingham, then that just reciprocates through the simulation community and network.
I think I'm lucky in the fact that Nottingham has such a great technical staff group, and the science side of things is really more developed than simulation. And we've got technicians at University of Nottingham that present at conferences and do research papers. And, I'm sure I was chatting to a guy the other day, and he'd been over on a research project to the US, done stuff over there, and he'd come back. And that's what I want for my simulation technicians as well. There's no reason why that can't happen.
No, and again, as simulation becomes more understood and recognised, and there's nothing to stop that from happening as well.
I'm sorry, I'm deep in this simulation technician development rabbit hole. Like, I wonder whether it's clearly a group of professionals who are on a trajectory of professionalization and ongoing development and specialization. I wonder whether anyone's given any thought, and including anyone listening, to whether or not there's space for, actually degree level, proper dedicated, undergraduate and postgraduate training for what is actually increasingly sophisticated and integral role to education. What do you think about that?
So I know that, I think it's Staffordshire, run a master's in simulation, and I'm sure, Mandy Wilford runs it. And when I was chatting to her, she said there's an awful lot of technical staff on that master's.
Right,
and I can't remember the name. I'm sorry, Mandy. But
we'll have to get Mandy on the podcast.
Yeah. Mandy, if you're listening, reach out.
Someone commented on our podcast last week, and that said that we need to get Mandy on. So,
that's it then. Mandy, please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you if you're listening. I just think it's such an important. It's so nice to sort of hear you talk about that. Particularly where you can see the future of technology, artificial intelligence, how that's going to be integrated in simulation moving forward. It's going to become more complex, I think, for technical staff. And then that's naturally going to evolve new career pathways and progression, I think. 100%. You mentioned something that pricked my ears up, and that was SPL. And I'm sure other people listening heard those three letters in combination, because no one was talking about SPL until a few years ago when the NMC created SPL.
So maybe we should just clarify SPL for the uninitiated.
Yeah, so SPL, my interpretation of what SPL is, that SPL is simulated practice learning, which is essentially simulation-based education, which hits a number of specific criteria set out by the Nursing and Midwifery Council. And if simulation hits those criteria, then nursing students can use the time in simulation in lieu of practice hours. And higher education or approved educational institutes, in the language of the NMC, can claim then placement tariff for those learning experiences.
Your Honour. That's well rehearsed, that is.
Yeah, I've had to learn it. I think
sound like you're in a court of law, being very careful.
I think that's as succinctly as I can put it. But that's my interpretation. If I'm wrong, and if anyone thinks I'm way off the mark, please let me know.
It's not just NMC, is it, or nursing students? It is across healthcare students, but the NMC are very prescriptive.
Well, it's only the NMC, as far as I'm aware, could consider SPL. Other programs can claim tariff
simulation. Yeah,
but let's just say your nursing programs have got 50,000 in tariff payments from SPL. How do you look to utilise that funding?
So I should be clear with the SPL. So it's not my budget to manage.
Okay.
So the head of operations within the health sciences manages it all. But I'll obviously work closely with her. And my understanding is it's to fund the simulation that our nurses are doing. And so it does cost a lot of money to run the simulation. We do. I should have mentioned earlier with our sim patients, it might be volunteers, but we do reimburse them for travel. And so there's a cost there. We may use actors as well, which is a different level of funding. It's really dependent on what the simulation and what that requires. But all of these things cost money. We all know mannequins cost money, and equipment and consumables all cost money. And so without that SPL, we wouldn't be able to run the amount of
It's not
simulation.
Uncommon in a university structure when money comes into a school or a faculty, a certain amount or percentage of that is top sliced by the university to go into the central budget. So claiming tariff, the money that you get doesn't necessarily mean all that money goes back into the school, I'm assuming.
Well, I wouldn't know actually within that. So I'll just get an amount given to me.
Okay, fine. So you get a pot of money.
Yeah.
But importantly, that is being reinvested back into simulated practice learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. And like you said, it sounds like
see the cogs whirring.
There's quite a lot, but I'm just fascinated. There's so many different, before we started recording, you talked about all the different budget streams and how you have to reconcile them, and you have to
go out cap in hand a little bit, don't you, and sort of beg, borrow, and steal where you can.
But you're thinking about kind of cross faculty pots of money and how you can best utilize that cash.
And you were also saying that posts are funded by some of those funding streams as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems complex.
It is complex. And I think, going back to that original point where you said you have those conversations with those managers that don't feel like they can actually say yes to it because it is so complex. They've got so much stuff to do. That's the real value of
that's
role.
The challenge that we've had. We've had a school manager who's gone, hands up, I don't, simulation isn't my area of expertise. I'm going to defer to you as the academic. And I'm going, fine, I can advise you from a simulation point of view. But the budget streaming and stuff is not my area of expertise as well. And then you end up in sort of a no man's land, which is where you'd come in and fill in the gap. And
is having the time to look at it and understanding how it all works. My team do a lot of the spend. They do a lot of the ordering. Just making sure that they're actually, doing it properly, compliantly with the university regulations and all of that stuff. And just having that oversight of this is what the team are doing. This is why we're spending what we're spending. And bringing all of that information to people to say, we're on track, we're doing the right things.
So we probably better start thinking about how we start to bring this to a conclusion.
One more question, I guess, before we ask for your sort of final thoughts. What's the most challenging part of your job?
So I still struggle, because I was a teaching technician and I really loved doing that and being around the students and seeing that impact, that direct impact on the day. And actually, some of the long-term wins are amazing, but they don't come along every day. So it's that real kind of drive to actually get to that long-term win.
That gratification,
because writing a role profile is not the funnest thing in the world, but it needs to be done. It needs to happen.
Or a tender application.
Yeah. And we all know, university politics, every institution has its politics and they're really challenging to deal with and infuriating sometimes, and things that are out of your control. And so a lot of those things are quite hard to deal with. And, you don't get that instant win when you see a great simulation session. But you have to take real pride in the fact of you think you have a great oversight of the amount of students that come through my centre. how much impact am I actually having is enormous.
And from the student's point of view, it's arguably the part of their education they enjoy the most. So that must be really satisfying as well.
I'm convinced that's right, because, when you look at free text comments on NSS, if you search for clinical skills in those, it's always, I loved clinical skills. I wish we had more.
I wish we had more.
It's always, we wish we had more time to practice. When exam season comes along, the knocks on my door, can we just use this space to do this? And so, the students really, really value it. And there are, I think it's about 2,000 students we're supporting. Every year, 2,000 people are having a really rich experience within the centre.
And that's hugely important on a kind of experience level. But I think the gratification as well is that we know that contributes to health outcomes and to competence and to patient care at the end of the day as well. So I share actually the challenges, the frustrations, but also that deferred gratification goal that actually we know that it's hard, but that at times you get, every now and again, you get to step back and go, do you know what? Like the thing you described where the sim for those senior faculty members just goes off and you just sit there and let it happen. That's really great to hear. It's been so interesting hearing about your insights as a simulation centre manager. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It's been a real pleasure and an eye-opener for us, because I think we have been banging the drum for a sim centre manager. It's always been down to a case of we don't have the budget for it, or because it will be a new post for us. So it's that justifying it to the policymakers and the budget holders. It's been fascinating listening to what you do and a bit of self-reflection in terms of our shortfalls and where we would benefit hugely from someone like yourself in that role.
If you were talking to an audience of people who perhaps don't yet have the benefit of a simulation centre manager, what kind of
what's your elevator
advice?
pitch?
What one piece of advice? We don't need I think I've had like a 40-minute elevator pitch. It's the longest elevator journey ever. But what one piece of advice would you give, senior faculty members listening to say, do I really need a sim centre manager? Nick, are you sure?
So you definitely do. Every institution
Appreciate you've got skin in the game.
Yeah. So it's an unbiased opinion, obviously, but we've talked at length about how much simulation costs, and in increasingly challenging times within universities, budgets are getting tighter, aren't they? It's making sure that those spends are correct and appropriate for our students. We still want to provide the best student experience, but we've got to make sure the spends are correct and proportionate. I genuinely think without my role, you could easily spend an awful lot of money on not a lot and getting nothing out.
Getting wasted,
Yeah. And that, there's all sorts of companies that are also trying to make a living and will sell you the best thing. And it's not necessarily that it isn't, but it just might not be
what you need
operationally used at all. And if you're ever in a position where you are looking at building a new space as well, you can spend an awful lot of money on that and get it completely wrong as well. So I think that those potential huge financial mistakes are offset by the investment in a role like mine.
Fantastic. Thank you. What a lovely way to leave it. We also have a habit on this podcast when we have a guest on of trying to invite ourselves to come and look at your facilities. So we'd love to come and have a look at.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we'd love to. Yeah, great. We'd love to come up to
the Simulation Centre at Nottingham at some point. But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming onto the podcast. It's been really, really interesting talking to you. And thank you all for tuning in and watching or listening to this episode of the podcast. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Bye for now.